President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has replaced his defence minister amid allegations of corruption within his government, claims Oleksii Reznikov has dismissed. Let's bring in our military analyst, Sean Bell. Reznikov not implicated personally, I think I'm right in saying, but this is something that's been rumbling on for some time.
It has, good morning. Oleksii Reznikov, he's been the Ukrainian Defence Secretary since November of 21. President Zelenskyy last night at his nightly address announced that he dismissed him because it was time for a fresh approach. Now, Reznikov, to his credit, has been credited with securing billions of dollars of international aid for the war effort and also for transforming the Ukrainian MOD so it's ready for when ultimately it'll join NATO. Now, this 57-year-old has not actually been directly accused of anything, as you say, but he presided over the Ukrainian Ministry of Defence at a time when his deputy had to resign after there was talks about contracts with vastly inflated prices for food. And this dismissal has to be set in the context of a Zelenskyy challenge. He's trying to get rid of this anti-corruption campaign, as it were, because if he doesn't do that, Ukraine will not be able to join the EU in the fullness of time. So he's been replaced by Rustem Umerov, who runs the Ukrainian state property fund, has a great deal of credibility as a politician, but not much military background.
No, and presumably it's too early to say whether we've had any hint from him as to what direction he might take the course of the war.
No, we haven't. But to be brutally honest again, we've just watched Ben Wallace move on. The actual role of a defence secretary isn't actually in the nuts and bolts of defence. They look upwards and outwards. They're about securing money. They're negotiating with other politicians and on the international stage. Whereas looking down, the Ukrainians already have a very good MOD team. Their head of General Valery Zelenskyy, who's the commander of Ukrainian forces, will remain in post. The military strategy will undoubtedly remain in post. The key question, though, is that the critical reliance of Ukraine on Western support. And that's where Reznikov has been very, very effective. And there's widespread rumours that he might therefore be selected to be the next Ukrainian ambassador to the UK. And reflecting on all of this, whilst its continuity is good in defence secretaries, he has been imposed over 500 days, and sometimes a fresh approach brings a fresh perspective.
Yeah, and a very stressful 500 days, of course, it has been. And Sean, let's talk a little bit about these allegations from Ukraine that Russian drones have hit Romanian territory. This all comes as that negotiation is underway over the grain deal.
Yeah, it's all the timing is unfortunate. It's very interesting. Ukrainian reports there was a massive wave of Russian drone attacks last night on the Izmail, the Danube River ports. Then the Ukrainians claim that two Shahed 136 drones, the Russian drones, fell and were detonated on Romanian territory. Now, the Romanian Defence Minister at this stage has denied that this has happened. But if you look at the map, you just have to look at the Danube. It's hundreds of miles away from Russian territory. But, of course, it borders Romania, which, of course, is a NATO country. And we were reporting last month, if you look at footage from last month, when the Russians were actually attacking the north side of this river, it just shows you how narrow the river is, and therefore the grave risks of escalation, given they were attacking targets just across the river from a NATO country. So grave risk of miscalculation. Now, and it's a big if Russia did launch an attack on NATO territory, that would be a massive escalation. It's quite possible, if it did happen, that it was a mistake and therefore Russia will deny everything. From a NATO perspective, I suspect that they would not want the conflict to escalate, so they will probably play this long. Regardless, we're expecting statements from the Romanian Defence Minister later on today.
Yeah, it's interesting that Bucharest came out so quickly to deny it, isn't it?
Yeah.
OK. Sean, thank you, as always.